you. I have a question on interest rate margins. So every year I'm stumbling over that big figure where basically 50% of the cost of borrowing come from the interest rate margin, so basically from the internal cost of intermediation. So my question would be, how do you look at this, and could this indicate perhaps a need for further consolidation in the sector, a need for M&A, or what other initiatives could be perceivable to bring down those costs of intermediation and to ease the cost of borrowing? Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question in front row.
Thank you. I'm Benjamin Gasamagira from Safari Center. I have two questions. My first question is about agriculture sector. If I understood well, the governor said that when we do well in agriculture, it's a factor of stabilization of our economy. And when you look closely, the investment which goes to agriculture is still very low. So I'm wondering if we have a good strategy of increasing the investment or attracting more good investments in agriculture to make that sector, which we all know that have a crucial importance in our economy. My second question is about, I'm one of the users of the banks, and sometimes we have an impression that BNR, as the regulator of the banks, sometimes it overprotects the mighty ones. I think I'm not the first one to bring that comment, but my specific one today is about the transaction that we have with banks. Because when, for example, for payment transactions, if one company or one person pays to the other through the banks, the time, I have been told that there have been time limits which has been given, which is 24 hours or 48 hours. But sometimes this time, in my experience, this time limits is not respected. So sometimes we ask ourselves, if the time limit is not accepted, and you are given reasons that it's the system which is not working, it's the BNR, you are the scapegoat. That's why I put this question to you. And sometimes the amount which is involved is very important. It can be a transaction of hundreds of millions. So if this money is kept somewhere where we the beneficiary or the payers, we don't know where it is, it can be, we need some explanation on that, on the transaction, because since banks, we see them as the mighty ones and they give us reason, it's BNR, it's the system which doesn't work. So we ask ourselves, who has to pay for that? Because when we keep money from the banks, even for a second, the computer calculates the interest. But once they keep our money, who pays for those interests? I thank you.
Thank you so much. With that round of questions, so yes, we have a question.
Merci, le français a été permis pour poser la question. Je m'appelle Kagabo. Je suis un ancien de la banque. Ma question concerne un point qui n'a pas été développé dans la présentation, mais qui regarde, qui concerne l'aspect économique de la sous-région. Ça concerne la création de la zone d'union monétaire de l'Est Africa. Ce point, d'après les nouvelles que j'ai reçues dernièrement, c'est que les chefs d'État ont annoncé la création imminente de l'Institut monétaire dans la direction de créer cette zone et enfin d'aboutir à une monnaie unique. Ce matin, je lisais un journal qui parlait des problèmes de la dette au niveau des États de l'East Africa. Ce qui m'a fait peur, c'est que ça concernait la plus grande économie de la région. Je sais que cette union monétaire copie tout ce qui a été fait par l'Union européenne. Mais l'Union européenne, dernièrement, il avait fait face à des problèmes d'endettement, notamment de la Grèce et de l'Italie, et ça a causé pas mal de troubles au niveau de la zone. Alors, quand j'ai entendu cette nouvelle concernant la sous-région, je me suis dit, quelle chance avons-nous pour l'aboutissement de ce processus de création d'union monétaire dans la sous-région. Avec ce problème d'endettement et de surendettement de certains pays, et même les économies qui sont un peu plus avancées. Vous savez que l'Union européenne est principalement conduite par une économie forte qui est l'économie allemande, appuyée par l'économie française. Alors, si dans la sous-région, certains pays qui sont jugés forts font face à ce problème d'endettement, avec le risque même de voir les actifs saisis par la Chine, qui a prêté à ces pays, quelle chance donnez-vous à cette zone monétaire dans la sous-région? Merci.
Merci. Do we have any more questions?
I think we can respond to those.
We can respond.
Okay, thank you. Maybe to start with questions from Kagabo, I know the chief economist is our chief negotiator vis-à-vis the formation of the monetary union. But as you said, I think we had an important step taken by the last summit of the heads of state when they approved the creation of the Monetary Institute for the East African community, because this was a precursor. This is the institution that is going to drive and coordinate the efforts to move into a monetary union. So from that, now the ministers responsible for ESC, working with the other institutions, will now work to implement that decision of the heads of state. And so and good enough, this year we are chairing the ESC by our president, and at our level, the Monetary Policy Affairs Committee, we are the ones chairing it. So these are issues we are going to be discussing. But the creation of the Monetary Institute is one factor, but there are many other preconditions to move into a monetary union. I think you are aware that under the Monetary Union Protocol, we have what we call the criteria for moving into a monetary union. And the debt you mentioned is part of the factors that has to be addressed. And we are committed as ESC countries not to exceed 50% of our economy, of our GDP as debt to our countries. So I won't comment on the country mentioned that is maybe over-indebted. That might be something that is maybe necessary for now because they did a lot of investments in infrastructure. But in general, these are principles guiding the formation of the monetary union. Again, the other factor that we see lagging is the common market. We expected the common market to be fully implemented before we move into a monetary union. So the free movement of goods, capital, labor, I think we still see slow movement from that angle. So that will need to see that improving. So from our side, from the technical point of view, as central banks, we've been working together to harmonize our operations, to really coordinate whatever we are doing. And by the time we are ready to move into a monetary union, or even before that, any investor or any economic actor coming into the region will face the same regulatory regime in terms of how we compare economic numbers and all that. We are really working on harmonizing that. But the process of moving to that end, we are happy that at least the first step is taken, and this institute should help us to coordinate that move. But Kigabo can add to that as our chief negotiator on that side. The question on the interest rate margin, I request Peace to address that. That's a question from the gentleman from KFW. The question from Robert, it's good that you're asking this as the chairman of the Private Sector Federation. I would imagine as you are talking on behalf of the transporters, you also should be talking on behalf of the insurers. So how the two can come together and understand each other. And as a business guy, you understand that in business you have to make profit, or otherwise you cease operating. Or you have to have a big capital if you're not making profit. So these insurance companies, as we said before, they have really pumped in capital, but it can't be forever. The business needs to make sense. And as you saw in the numbers, the biggest challenge they've been having with causing their losses has been on motor insurance. And so the cost, the charge they impose for the insurance, the risk they're taking is much lower than the risk that they take on, and if they end up paying a lot of money vis-a-vis the premiums they've collected from the policy holders. So how do we address this? I think, as I said in the presentation, it's not just a matter of increasing the rates. I think the other challenges in this industry, there's fraud, there are other issues there's issues of unlimited compensation. So there are different issues that have to be done to address this issue. It's not just the premium rates, but still, as a transporter, if tomorrow your truck had issues and the insurer is not able to pay you, I'm sure you'll be concerned. And so for us, our concern as a regulator is not really to give profit to the insurance sector as such, but is to ensure that this insurance business in our country is sustainable and able to cover the risks of other business people and therefore support business or economic growth in general. So I think I'll talk to the Minister of Finance because he's the one chairing the meeting tomorrow. I'm sure it should have been good that you invited as chair of the Private Sector Federation and maybe the transporter. But I think what's important is I wouldn't expect the transporters to be fighting with the insurers. I think it's to understand why is there a need to increase the price. And as I said earlier, it's no longer a blanket increase. The last time we were here in August, I had told you we expected a 40% increase in January. But we thought, and really government thought it wasn't right that again we have just blanket increase based on the study of 2014. That's why we commissioned another study by the central bank last year. And so the discussions we're having tomorrow with the consultants that did this study, with the experts, these are actually scientists, will show us the nitty-gritties of what is in this business, if it is to be sustainable, what is required. And as I said, we don't expect the blanket increase from this study. So I don't want to preempt the discussion that will be there, but I'll really, in fact, Eric is here. If you can help us to immediately inform your minister to invite the Private Sector Federation and the transporters, it's really, because they are different actors, they are key people that will be attending that meeting. So it's right that you also attend it, and so we... Normally, these rates were supposed to be set based on market conditions, but since it's each insurance sector would have, each insurance company would have used their actuarial services to determine the pricing of their products. But because there's been this negative competition, that's why we are forced to take it up as a central bank and do the study, commission the study ourselves that will guide the pricing of these products. So really, as a regulator, we are not here for, we are not really supporting the insurance sector at the expense of the transporters. But again, if we don't protect the insurance business, then the consequences to the overall financial sector and the economy in general will be big. And that's why even the government itself is coming in. As I said, the meeting tomorrow is being chaired by the Minister of Finance himself. So from the current chair to the former chair of the Private Sector Federation, Kasama Jera, so we don't really protect banks as a regulator. If anything, we protect clients of the banks. They're here, they can tell you. The fights we have with them is for the benefit of the client of these banks. So when we talk of financial stability, it's not in the interest of the investors in these banks, it's in the interest of the depositors of these banks. So what we monitor is the ability of the banks to address the needs of their depositors. That's number one. But of course, as an industry, we would want it to contribute to economic development in general. But if we talked purely as regulators, we are really interested on the stability of these banks. Of course, they can't be stable if they are not making business sense. So that's why we look at their profitability, and so we look at their capital base. So generally speaking, our biggest mandate is to protect the clients of these banks, and by that, we can only protect the clients of these banks by ensuring that the banks are strong and stable. So, but on the question you posed, which is key, is on the payment systems. We know there are some banks that had bad practices that we called the value debt, where you make your transaction today, they receive the money on your account, but you can't access that money until the following day. We've issued an instruction stopping that practice, and I'm told, NAPC is here, and John, who follows up payment system, that practice has been stopped by all banks. So at least that's a negative practice that we also don't accept. Now, in terms of the systems, in fact, with the new check truncation that we introduced last year, it used to take like 2 days to pay using a check. But with the check truncation, I'm told there's been some challenges here and there, but normally today we expect the payments to be done at least twice a day. The clearing of these checks to be done twice a day. And normally you're supposed to receive your payment, if it is done in the morning, the same day. If it's done in the afternoon, the following day in the morning. That is what we expect. There might be still challenges here and there, and that is our responsibility as regulators of the payment systems. And again, to even improve further on this, we are upgrading our RIPs, as I said earlier, and with this upgrade, it will be operating 24/7. So they don't have to wait for the following day, as we are working with them also to improve on their systems. Then payments could be, of course, when you're paying with a check, it has they have to control it, they have to check whether it's a genuine check, so that takes some time. But we are looking at a possibility where we can introduce more clearing sessions than the 2 we have today. And so, I don't know if, John, you want to add anything on this, but I know we are, even the bank themselves here, they're here anyway, so if there are any issues, we can address that. But our aim is that In fact, we want to have instant payments. With checks, it takes some time. But with payment orders, it's supposed to be instant payment. That's what we want. So I can see, as you're saying, it's not happening. I don't know. Maybe the banks here will contribute to that, or John or Peace can add to that. But that's the objective, and if it's not happening, then we will follow it up and know what the issues are and address it. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. Please.
Thank you, Governor. On the issue about interest rate margins and the cost of intermediation, that is a valid and true issue as is today. And it's something that we have embarked on seriously at the central bank level in our discussions with the banks, with the supervised entities, not just banks actually, even the insurance sector. I think the issue of operational efficiency continues to be a major challenge for us as a sector. There've been instances where we've actually stepped in to stop certain lines of operational expenses because we did not think that there was direct value that it was adding to the business. And so it is something that we are combating on a day-to-day basis with the banks. I don't know if taking a clue from the governor, if the banks would want to speak specifically to what they are individually doing to combat or to bring down this interest rate margin. Maybe it would be a good thing to have them complement that as well.
Yes, Diane?
Thank you very much, Governor. On the question of operational costs, we agree as a sector it's still a challenge, but you must have seen that many banks are now closing down branches and trying to move customers to digital channels. But this will take time, as the investments banks have made in improving their IT infrastructure and digital channels. It will still take time until we get to a better OPEX, and this will impact the cost of funding that we see, because there's still a large portion of operational expenses. It's true. Thank you.
Do you have any comment on the time it takes to clear payments?
Yeah, I think overall it's improving. Following the check truncation project last year, there are still technical glitches here and there. But if you look at the trend, and as Governor was saying, the value date has been now, we got the instruction from the central bank to stop it, and this has stopped, and I can confirm that. There are still technical glitches here and there, but if you look at the trend over the past couple of months, I think most clients agree that it takes less time to get interbank payments. Thank you.
John, you want to say something about this?
Thank you, Governor. What I can comment is that the current interbank systems is split into where we have what you call real-time gross settlement system, which is RTGS, where we expect every transfer to be settled on real time once it's processed by a bank. And the rules are clear, saying that any payment which has reached to the beneficiary's bank, the bank should normally credit the beneficiary's account within 2 hours. So that's for RTGS. But where we think maybe the problem may be is the time a bank receives an instruction and the time it is processed to the system. So we are working on that to see really if that particular time is observed. But when it comes to now what the governor said about the current upgrade of the interbank system, we are going 24/7, but also what we want is also to improve. We can have a good system, but also want banks also to improve on the relationship they have with their client. So the current upgrade will also go hand in hand with how banks will also connect or integrate with their client, especially corporate client. So we're expecting that this 24/7 will be improved once also banks are able, maybe through their internet banking, allow you to process immediately payment and have that instant payment, which was referred by the central by the governor. So those small problems, maybe on the time to process this transaction, is something we can look at because we can impose that. On the check truncation, what we have seen, yes, the system is working very well, but we have what we call a capturing point. So you'll find that all banks don't have those scanners to all their branches. So some of them must collect checks to a particular capturing points, which can be a particular branch. So it takes also some time, but once it's processed to the system, automatically, as the governor said, the payment or the settlement should be the same day if it is processed before midday, and afternoon should be the next day before 10. So we want just to...
Maybe, John, if you can advise the business community here, what instrument they need to use to take advantage of the real-time settlement system instead of going through the long chain of issuing checks?
Yes, of course, that's a good question, Governor, because we have also to know that as we are going digital, some payment instruments can be more efficient than others. So if you want to move faster, using, for example, a credit transfer can help you to process as soon as possible your transfer, as opposed to a check, because the check has, the nature of a check has some requirements that must be fulfilled before it's processed. So it's also good that we also know what kind of payment instruments we can use, especially when we want to fast track our payment. So going forward, I think by end of this year, we shall be, I think, the first country in Africa to have an RTGS working 24/7, and this will be a big milestone. Thank you, Governor.
So maybe to Benjamin and the other business committees here, we trying to improve on the systems. I know there should be challenges, but maybe we can advise. We've set up a specific department responsible for consumer protection issues and addressing questions from clients of financial institutions. So if you have that challenge, please inform us. We'll follow up with the specific financial institutions to know what the problem is. So we can only be sure that we've addressed everything if we understand what the issues are. So I think we should be able to address, with the new technologies we're introducing in the market, and I know the banks have had big investments in improving their systems, we should be able to really move real time and be able to settle. We can't be driving cashless if we can't settle payments immediately. And that pushes people to go back to cash transactions. Maybe, Eric, you want to comment on the question that was asked on financing agriculture. I know the Minister of Finance is working together with the Minister of Agriculture to try and de-risk the agriculture sector, because as you rightly said, Benjamin, this is one of the biggest sectors that drives performance of the economy, but has big challenges in terms of risks, and banks are always hesitant to lend to this sector because of its nature. But I know there is work being done by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture and the other partners to de-risk this sector. So can you give Eric a microphone, please?
Microphone.
Kana mujebule tereka Eric abanze service.
Thank you, Governor. I think very valid concerned because it has a direct impact on the performance of the economy. What the government is doing with several stakeholders, Minister of Finance, Minister of Agriculture, the private sector, but also the government partners, we have started a process of de-risking agriculture. And in simple terms, the project is about how do you make agriculture a business. And the discussions are around developing an integrated system that allows to all the stakeholders along the value chain to be talking to each other. So if I pick an example, how do you ensure that from the farm and whatever the farmer needs is integrated through the whole value chain? So in simple terms, you are thinking about a farmer needs better breeds or better seeds and other inputs. He needs farm equipment. He needs other support infrastructure like irrigation. So the government is working on, has been working on a number of initiatives to make the farm productive: land registration, land consolidation, irrigation, improved seeds, farm equipment, and also extension services. But how does that link with, for that particular value chain, how is it linked to the markets, the insurance, the credit guarantee, and the access to finance? So the discussion is around how do we pick one value chain and then integrate it all through the value chain such that there is someone hand-holding this farmer and be able to access all the other services that he needs. You've heard stories about delayed supply of fertilizers, that the loans from the banks are dispersed when harvesting has started. And then there's overproduction this side, and then there's no supply of raw materials at this processing unit. How does the whole value chain be integrated and talking to each other? Is the project that is underway. We hope by end of March should be able to start engaging in terms of implementation. But what is very important that along that, some components are a bit advanced. I think one of it that is agriculture insurance. And the government has committed to subsidize the premium insurance to the tune of 40% of the premiums, both for certain selected crops and livestock. And we think that's part of the story, but there is and some sense of urgency to ensure that we integrate the whole process from end to end. And with that into implementation, then we think the agriculture should be de-risked enough to make it attractive for financial institutions to put in money into that sector, but also other private investors should be able to put in money into that sector, which is probably, we deal with the real risks, but also the perceived risks. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have questions online. I'd like to ask our team to project the questions that we have that are coming in from two people. But before, as they're doing this, I'd like to read them. One is from Derek Kananura, and it says, last year, to the governor, during last year's presentation, you talked about the actuarial studies to certain the premiums of motor insurance to stabilize the industry. What can we expect the result to be? And the second is from Tade. He said some customers are not satisfied by financial institutions due to a lot of information which is being asked from them regarding categories, monthly incomes. As they say, it's required by the National Bank of Rwanda. What might be a solution to that? Thank you.
I think the first question, we answered it already. We said the study is completed. Tomorrow we are having a meeting of key stakeholders chaired by the Minister of Finance. So the outcome of this study will be announced later after the stakeholders meeting. That is, I think that the one we have tomorrow should be, we've had a lot of stakeholder meetings. I think the one we're having tomorrow should be the final one before we, the outcome of the study of these, the actual study on insurance of motor vehicles is announced. Interesting that I don't know whether that is a client asking or somebody from the financial sector. I know they've been accusing us of requesting a lot of information, but it's all about informed policy making. If we are to make policies that are really based on facts, we need to know who we are dealing with. So this is mainly linked to drive to access to finance and poverty reduction policies, but also on issues of knowing your customer. So the information that is required is about segregating the financial data that allows any policymaker to know how to address any issues that are within financial access of our population. So we request them to bear with us. I think we've allowed banks time and insurance companies to collect this data, but it's really key that we know the population we are dealing with, and that helps us in making informed judgments on policies that address issues across different sectors.
Thank you, Governor.
I think Peace wants to add on that.
I just wanted to supplement on that so that we are all on the same page on why this information is being sought. If you followed the recent terror attack in Kenya, the attack on Dasit, one of the issues that came out, at least strongly for me personally, was emphasizing the issue of banks, the need of banks knowing their customers. I think it became very apparent that the people that did perpetrate this attack had actually channeled money through the banking system, through MNOs on mobile money. So I think that really is one of the key issues on why it's important that banks know who it is that they are dealing with, what is the source of their incomes, where, build a profile on the customers that you're serving. In that way, you're able to protect not just the bank's reputation, but if you look at the Dasit case, really it does even have a bigger impact on the country at large. In addition to that, there's been instances where some banks have had their relationships with international banks discontinued because of the risks that they pose just by not knowing who it is that they're dealing with. So the comfort that I can give to the public is that, yes, it is a requirement that they go to the banks and actually fill this information. Of course, be careful how you fill the information. I do understand the risks that people are aware of for the information being asked for on the phone. So just do walk into a bank branch, walk into your insurance branch and provide the information just so that, everybody knows who it is that we're dealing with.
Thank you so much. As you've heard, it's for the security of the public. With your permission, Governor.
I think we have the last one. I don't know, Gaudence wants to say something.
The last one, yes.
Thank you, Governor. Mine is just a comment about what the chairman of PSF said. There is a challenge for transporters and many other clients, but as we saw in the presentation, the motor insurance is still loss-making. And among the things which are making the industry improving, there is a regulation central bank passed, which prohibits the selling of insurance on credit. And among the challenges transporters do face, and with even other clients, is paying premiums upfront. There have been some products in the financial sector, especially what used to be called premium financing, which is not picking up. It is not I don't know what this product has gone, but my call or my question is, how can we, I'm asking the banks, my colleague from banks, if at the time of financing an asset or a vehicle, they can package the premium all together during the repayment period such that people don't struggle for subsequent years. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor, with your permission, I would like to, I think we have one burning question in the back, if we could take that.
Thank you. You already limited the number of questions. My name is Magnus. I'm from Tarifa. My question is about the malpractices experienced in the insurance sector. I wanted to find out from the central bank, what considerations do you have about reported cases of malpractices in the insurance sector, particularly that the largest majority of Rwandans do not access or have no ability to finance litigations. So insurances tend to benefit from this inability of their clients. You find that there are so many cases where clients end up dropping their cases because they can't beat the system to be able to get the insurance companies to make their to meet their obligations. My last question is about with the new development of e-commerce, particularly the partnership with Rwanda and Alibaba. Looking at the nature of our export, you said that the largest formal exports were attributed to good performance in traditional exports. There is a likelihood that we are going to see different types of goods exported due to this trend. And I wanted to find out what kind of considerations you have to enable our economy to benefit competitively with the new trend that we are seeing, particularly e-commerce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope I understood your questions well. I think on the last one, there's a lot happening as a system. There is government, there's a private sector, there's a lot of investments going on in the tech industry that promotes e-payments and e-commerce. I don't know if Faith would want to talk on Rwanda Online as one of the big platforms that is promoting transactions and payments online. Though it's really about government payments, but it's one example that can drive other e-transactions and e-payments. So from our point of view as regulators, I think what we can do and what we have been doing is to create an environment that supports innovation, but also protects clients. So I think that's what we are preoccupied with, is and creating an enabling environment, but that doesn't risk the financial sector stability and the clients that will be using these new systems. Otherwise, as the Alibaba case you mentioned is one of the initiatives that is really being driven by the government to promote e-commerce and therefore improve on exports. As you said, yes, traditional exports were main drivers, but again, we singled out some key goods that are increasing our exports that are non-traditional exports, and the message here was we see diversification of our exports that is really good. I didn't bring out the graph this time, but I think last time we showed you a graph where the traditional export, that's coffee, tea, and minerals, moved from more than 70% as share of our exports to around 36% today. So that diversification is really positive, and so the other initiatives are coming to add on to that. On the question of the insurance sector and how they pay the claims from their clients, I don't think it's rampant, as you're saying. We track what is happening in how they receive claims, how they address these claims. There might be some pockets here and there. In fact, when you look at the numbers we showed here, their claims ratio is high. So we wouldn't say that they are not paying their claims at all. But we, as I said again, we've put up a department that is responsible for consumer protection that addresses now directly, receives and handles issues from clients of financial institutions. So if there are any cases, we'll be addressing it through this department. So, Francois, I don't know if you want to say anything on this, or you just ready to handle any question that will be coming to you.
Can we have the microphone?
Thank you, Governor. Actually, I'm now, maybe for our colleagues in banks, I'm now in charge of bank, I'm in charge of consumer protection department. So that's why the Governor is asking me to, is no longer bank supervision, consumer protection. So, Governor, thank you. On this issue of claim handling, we started kind of getting those requests, and we are trying to see on monthly what are the relevance of those claims. And for insurance sector, Governor, we still not yet receiving much complaints, but we're in discussion with our key partners to see how we can follow with better complaints, basically in all sectors, in banking sector and insurance sector. So for sure, we will have more clarity going forward. Thank you, Governor.
So Magnus, as I said, we don't think it's really a very big problem, but we put in place measures to address it if it's there, and we'll follow it up. So if you know any cases, I think you've seen the red responsible for that. We'll be happy to take it up and know what is happening.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this session, for the questions asked and the comments. And if there are any questions that you still have, you can send them through on our Twitter account at CentralBankRW, and also hashtag MPFSS2019, and we shall answer them when they come in. Right now, I would like to ask the Governor to share his closing remarks.
No, I think we've talked a lot. Just really, once again, thank you for accepting our invitation and for fruitful discussions we've had for the last 2 hours. We hope the information given to you in the booklets will be useful to your decisions, because that is our objective. The objective of this is really to give information that will help you to make informed decisions as you carry out your business, and therefore that helps us to better manage our economy and collectively work together to ensure stability and growth of the economy in general. So thank you, and happy to invite you to continue working around, is it tea, coffee, or soft drinks in general?
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. And for the press in the room, I would like to tell you that there will be a press conference soon after the cocktail. Thank you.
From the best.